Galveston, Texas, 2008. A cry pierced the night, a cry that would soon be silenced. 3-month-old Elijah Mullis, helpless and innocent, would never draw another breath. His father, Travis James Mullis, had reached a breaking point. Overwhelmed by the infant's cries, he snapped. The details were horrific. Molestation, fatal stomping, abandonment at the cold, uncaring Galveston seawall. The community reeled in horror. A father, the one meant to protect, had become the destroyer. The arrest was swift, the evidence overwhelming. Mullis, a man seemingly consumed by his own demons, made no attempt to deny the unspeakable act. He confessed, sealing his fate. The trial was a mere formality. A jury of his peers, haunted by the details of the crime, delivered a unanimous verdict. Guilty. The sentence, death. Years passed. Years filled with appeals, motions, and the slow, grinding gears of the justice system. Through it all, Mullis remained resigned. He accepted his fate, the weight of his crime pressing down on him. Death row became his world, a sterile, unforgiving environment where every tick of the clock brought him closer to his final reckoning. There were no desperate pleas for clemency, no last-minute legal maneuvers. Mullis seemed to understand. He had committed an unspeakable act, an act that demanded retribution. As the execution date approached, a sense of grim anticipation settled over the prison. The machinery of death was being put into motion. In the hours leading up to his execution, Travis Mullis was visited by a chaplain. A sense of peace, or perhaps resignation, settled over him. He spoke of his son, his voice thick with remorse. He expressed regret, deep and profound, for the life he had taken. Years on death row had given him time to reflect, to confront the monstrous act he had committed. Mullis spoke of his own troubled past, of the abuse he had suffered, of the mental illness that had haunted him. But he offered no excuses. He acknowledged the weight of his crime, the unbearable pain he had inflicted on his son and all those who had loved him. Section 4. Scars of a Troubled Past. Travis Mullis's life had been a tapestry of pain and hardship. Abandoned at birth, he was shuffled between foster homes. At the age of 5, he was adopted. His new life, however, was not the escape he had hoped for. His adoptive father, a man consumed by his own demons, subjected him to relentless physical and emotional abuse. The scars, both physical and psychological, ran deep. As Mullis grew older, his troubled past manifested in a string of petty crimes, fueled by anger, despair, and a desperate cry for help. He self-medicated with drugs and alcohol, seeking to numb the pain that gnawed at him. A diagnosis of severe mental illness only added to his burden. He was, in the words of one psychiatrist, a walking time bomb, primed for disaster. Section 5. Final words and a contentious debate. The execution chamber was cold and sterile. Witnesses gathered, their faces etched with a mixture of sadness, anger, and grim fascination. Travis Mullis, strapped to the gurney, looked out at them, his eyes filled with a strange mix of fear and acceptance. His last words were simple yet profound. "I'm sorry. I take responsibility. I'm ready." The lethal injection was administered. Travis Mullis, the troubled soul who had taken a life in a moment of unimaginable darkness, drew his final breath. His death reignited the debate surrounding capital punishment. Was justice served? Or had the state merely become a mirror image of the killer, exacting an eye for an eye? The questions lingered, echoing in the sterile silence of the execution chamber. The debate, much like the memory of that horrific night in Galveston, refused to die.